Howdy, folks, and welcome to another great adventure. And tonight we're going to kick back in with the Lone Star Library and our book we've been reading up on about the man, this guy who went out west on his Rocky Mountain adventure, where he teamed up with a bunch of trappers and they headed west out of Independence, Missouri. Now they've gotten a lot of adventure. They've met up with some Indians. They've hauled alcohol and watched Indians get drunk. They've shot buffalo. They've had outrun a prairie fire. That's just a little bit of the recap. They met up with other travelers. They built a fort, or they're building a fort. They went through Christmas. They've had kind Indians and they've had rough and tough Indians. So we're joining back up with them tonight. Now we're taking a trip back in the yesteryear to the 1840s. So bear with me as I try to read this old book. This is from the 1880s or something like that. It's an old book. It's very old. I got to be careful with it because it's old and fragile. But we're going to join back up with these guys. And the nice part about this is the guy writes it in and tells about what days, we're reading on and what's been going on, kind of daily activity. It must be like his diary of what his adventure is going through. But we can follow through his eyes and his experiences of what it would be like to be on the trail, back in the day, traveling in a wagon when it's cold and snowy and it's December and they're out on the plains. It must be brutal. Remember, they didn't have the big winter boots and they had wool and, deer hides or buffalo hides to keep them warm. A lot different scenario than we have now. So be thankful with the time you live in. As we can just turn on the heater in the car, and travel wherever we want, or we can turn up the heat in the house and bundle up with the best material ever made. So with that, I'll present something good here because you don't want to look at my ugly mug all the time. And we'll get right back where we left off the last time. So there we go. Okay, the foregoing results of the infamous traffic are only a few of the many instances like the nature I must cite in proof of its intermittent danger of those engaged in the prosecution. But this is not the darkest part of the picture. There are yet scenes in reserve, more bloody and dreadful than those above recited, though not perhaps quite as perilous to the whites themselves. They all occurred in the winter of 1842, during the brief period of 2 months, and resulted immediately from the sale of liquor. And I told you about the liquor. I shall not enter into details, but content myself by laying before the reader a mere synopsis of the facts. In November, the American Fur Company from Fort John sent a quantity of their drugged liquor to the Indian village on the Chugwater as a gift, for the purpose of preventing the sale of the article by their competitors in trade. The consequence was the poor creatures all got drunk and a fight ensued, which ended in the death of 2 head chiefs, Bull Bear and Yellow Lodge, and 6 of their friends, besides the wounding of 14 others who took part in the affray. Soon after, an affair occurred from the same cause, resulting in death of 3. About the same time, another of the nature took place in the Cheyenne village, and 3 more were killed. Several were also killed in the interval in the vicinity of the Cheyenne and the Missouri rivers by their friends and companions while under madding influence of intoxicating drink. The precise number is not known. They very last trade at the close of the season produced an unusual deeds of bloodshed and murder. 2 Indians were killed, and the person who sold them the vile article narrowly escaped with his life. I might go on still further with a sickening sketch, but as enough has already been said to shock the sensibilities of the reader in endeavoring to afford him some idea of the enormities and untold horrors connected with the criminal traffic, I must forbear. The liquor used in this business is generally third or fourth proof whiskey, which, after being diluted by a mixture of 3 parts water, is sold to the Indians as an exorbitant rate of 3 cups per robe. The cups usually holding about 3 gills each. But notwithstanding the above unconsiderable price, a large share of the profits result from the ingenious rudery of their who conduct the trade. Sometimes the measuring cup is not more than half full. Then again, the act of measuring is little other than mere guess. The purchaser receiving not more or more than 1/4 the quantity paid for. When he becomes intoxicated as to be unable to distinguish the difference between water and liquor, a thing not rare. The former is passed off upon him as the genuine article. Another mode of cheating is by holding the cup in such a manner that the 2 front fingers occupy a place upon the inside and thus save to the trader nearly a gill at each filling. Some have 2 cups, one of this usual size and the other less, which are so exchanged as to induce the purchaser to believe he is obtaining a third more than he actually receives, and others, yet more cunning, fill the measuring half full of tallow and deal out the liquor from it or off it. The witless dupe, not thinking to examine the bottom, supposes he receives the required quantity. No wonder the Indians, with such examples before him, learns to hate the white man. And despite the arbor his boasted civilization, no wonder he looks with an eye of suspicion, unlike upon his religion and his learning, and revolts at the thought of either. As the ingenious devices of scientific roguery, he has taught all the white man's voices before he learns any of his virtues or vices. Yeah. So the white man's cheating the Indian out of his robes by giving him less liquor. Can you believe that? The emissaries of Satan, by their untiring efforts, effectually stop his ears, blind his eyes, and harden his heart. Yet the heralds of the gospel set a foot upon his soil to tell him of the blessings of Christianity and the ways to happiness and to heaven. If the Indian is bad, it is because the white man has made him so, uncontaminated by intercourse with the off courtings of civilization, who come to cheat and despoil him of his property and deprive him of his comforts. You find him quite a different being. You find him brave, generous, and hospitable, as well as possessed of many exemplary moral qualities. If he is a savage, he might in many respects prove a safe and worthy teacher to those who pride themselves upon more enlightened education. He has a heart instinctive of more genuine good feeling than his white neighbor, a soul of more firm integrity, a spirit of more unyielding independence. Place the white man in his condition, devastated of all his restraints of law and unacquainted with the learning and the arts of civilized life, surrounded by all the associations of the savage state, and in the Indian, by comparison, will then exhibit in the more striking light that initiates superiority that he really possesses. So as long as you don't get him drunked up, he would be pretty darn good. No, the Indian should not be despised. He holds weighty claims upon our pity, our compassion, and our respect, but never should he be despised. Old Bull Trail, of whom I have occasion to speak in former chapter, having gotten the wholesome sentiments he advanced at the time referred to, took it into his head to have a spree, but he was not possessed of the means to obtain the will within. He adopted a somewhat novel substitute. He had an only daughter, and she was handsome, the pride of her family and the boast of her village. She was lovely, and all the high qualities of a princess were exhibited in her deportment. But Bulltail must drink. Why not give his daughter to Yellowhair and receive from him a keg of liquor as a marriage present? This thought was acted out, and one morning the old chief came to us, followed by his daughter, who, aware of her father's designs, gave vent to her grief in a flood of tears. As he entered the door, our traders addressed him. Trader, Bulltail is welcome to the lodge of the Long Knife, but why is his daughter, the pride of his heart, bathed in tears? It pains me that no so beautiful should weep. Bulltail. Shinsi is a foolish girl. Her father loves her, and therefore she cries. Trader. The contrary should prove greater cause for grief. Bulltail. Yellowhair speaks well, and truth only falls from his lips. Trader. How then can she sorrow? Bid her speak and tell me, that I may whisper in her ear words of comfort. Bulltail. Nay, Paleface, but I will tell thee. Bulltail loves his daughter very much. Very much he loves the Yellowhair much. He loves them both very much. The Great Spirit has put the thought into his mind that both might be alike his children. Then would his heart leap for joy the twice spoken names of father. Trader. What do I hear? I know not the meaning of thy words. Bulltail. Sure, Paleface, thou art slow to understand. Bulltail would give his daughter to the Yellowhair, for whose like him is so worthy to take her to his lodge. Bulltail has for a long time called the Paleface his brother, and now he would claim the Yellowhair as his son. Loves he not Shinsi's? Trader. Were I to deny my joy at the words of Bulltail, my tongue would lie. The Yellowhair has no wife, and who, like lovely Shinsi's, is so worthy that he should take her to his bosom. How could he ever show his gratitude for her noble father? Bulltail. The gift is free, and Bulltail will be honored in his acceptance. His friends will be glad with him, but they may bless the Yellowhair. Let him fill up the hollow wood with firewater, and Bulltail will take it to his lodge. Then the mating shall be thine. Trader. But Shinsis grieves. She loves not Yellowhair. Bulltail. Shinsis is foolish. Let the Yellowhair measure the firewater, and she shall be thine. Trader. Nay, but the yellow hair may not do this, since she should never be the wife of him she loves not. The old man continued to plead for some time in order to bring to successful issue the negotiation by which he hoped to wet his whistle and gain a son-in-law, but all to no purpose. Our trader could not be persuaded to form an alliance so entangling upon any such terms, and the chief left with all the lieutenants of disappointment and charged the spite upon his conscience. The mode of marriage prevalent among the mountain and the prairie tribes would seem rather strange and somewhat unfair to the better informed of civilized communities. The lady has little to say or do in the business. When an Indian takes it to his head to get married, he meets with the squaw suiting his fancy. He wastes no time in useless courtship, but hastens to the father and demands him to know how much he loves his daughter and what gift of horses will make his heart rejoice in a son-in-law. The father, after consulting with his daughter and her mother, states the terms, and these prove agreeable to the suitor. He immediately accepts them, and the twain become one flesh without further ceremony. In case the woman has no father, her eldest brother fills the place. And if she have neither father nor brother, her next nearest relative assumes the responsibility of bestowing her in marriage. If she be the eldest daughter and has unmarried sisters, the bridegroom becomes equally entitled to them and is looked upon as the common husband. Wow. Well, there you go. You got some trading to do. The first year succeeded this new relation. The bride's family considers all the horses and other valuables of the new made husband as their own. The second year, he is permitted to retain his personal property for the use of himself and his wife. But the third year, he enjoys the equal right with his relatives to everything in their possession. The decision of parents in the bestowment of the daughter in marriage is generally controlled by the largeness and the amount offered, thus showing that civilized life is not the only condition in which individuals are sometimes governed by the sordid motives of pronouncing upon questions of such vital importance to the welfare of others. The female is the only party upon whom the marriage contract is considered binding. The man may surrender it at any time, suiting his convenience or his happiness. He has the power even to dispose of his wife to another, or to a mere word to absolve himself from the obligation to her. In case of the latter, the discarded one returns to her father's lodge, ready again to test the reliabilities of the uncertain relationship whenever an opportunity presents itself, meeting with the approval of those who assume to make barter of her affections and person. A woman, to be happy in the state of society, should never indulge in the fancied passion pictured in such glowing colors by crack-brained poets and novel writers called love. Or if she has the assurance to do so, or do otherwise, it should be of that more versatile and accommodating order so often exhibited in more refined circles, which may be reclaimed and transferred as interest or circumstances suggested. Her affections are not at her own disposal, and to render life tolerable, she must learn to love only as she is loved, and to love herself above all others. Next to horses, women constitute an Indian's chief wealth. This circumstance not unfrequently results in one individual approaching to himself 6 or 8. The squaw is compelled to dress robes and skins, make moccasins, cure and take care of meat, attend to the horses, procure firewood, and perform sundry other little dungeries that an Indian will not do. Though her life becomes possessed of the means of procuring from whites such articles as his necessities or fancy may require. A purity of wives with him, there are plurality of wives with him, therefore is more a matter of economy than otherwise. Wow, how about that? Well, let's see. Okay, chapter 10. We're up to chapter 10 already. Believe it or not. Among the daily visitors was Tahunga Inushka, a head chief of the Brule village. Years had bleached his locks with their taming frost and taught him self-government. Well disposed as a man, he never became a participant in those discussing scenes of intoxication and almost continually transpired around us. He was a mere looker on and moralizer, and as he witnessed the blameworthy conduct of his people, an ill-suppressed sigh was frequently audible, with the inward workings of regret were plainly defined upon his countenance. Melancholy, too, had left her traces upon him, and as he sat day by day in gloomy silence, he seemed the very impersonation of grief. Well, the chief was not a happy camper. Now, was he? Yeah, so the chief didn't drink, and he got all wound up. Put it that way. Go this way. There we go. Let's expand that. That's a good one. That's probably what it looked like too. There's their little fort, their trading post, and the Indians outside, looking gloomy every day as they traded all their goods for liquor. Whenever the throng dispersed from a few moments, he would improve, and the opportunity for conversation with us. For in the benevolence of his heart, he loved the whites and was greatly pained at the injuries and injustice it was so often their lot to endure. But he had a story of his own to tell, and it was a tale of affliction, a stab at the best feelings of the father's heart. And by whom? By the very whites he loved. By the very men whose business it was to degrade his people and ruin them by contaminating effects of the unhallowed intercourse. 6 months of scarcity yet passed since the old chief had been called to mourn his youthful hope, and the pride and joy of his declining years, his firstborn son, and that son had fallen by the hand of the white man. Still, the sorrow-stricken father harbored no thought of revenge. He sought nothing for himself save the locks of that son, that he might hang them within his lodge and gaze upon them and weep. His simple tale was so touching in its nature, it served to enlist the deep sympathies of our hearts. We began to regret him with much indifference, and felt quite at home in his company. He would frequently entertain us with his anecdotes and occasions suggested, and in such times he invariably proved both agreeable and communicative. The history of his own life was far from uninteresting. He was the only one of the Brule chiefs then living who had signed the first treaty with the whites, since which he had ever observed its stipulations with supercilious intactness, and still carefully retained a silver medal bestowed upon him by the government agent at the time. Some of his stories were garbled with a strange romance, and thought they may appear foreign to truth in many respects. I cannot resist the temptation of presenting a few of them to the reader here. So now the old chief's going to tell us some stories. Go figure. One day, several Indians had betelled largely upon a game of hard or at hand, and this called forth from the old man the following story. When the young man, I delighted in war, and seldom did a party of our people visit the enemy that included me not with its number. These scars tell where I stood when the arrow flew thick, hastened to spill the blood of the brave. Rarely did we return empty-handed from the foreman's land, without horses to ride or scalps to dance. Yet at the time we came back like fools, and we were ashamed to appear at the soldiers' feasts. One of these times I well recollected, and I will tell of it to my white children, that they also may remember it. We were proceeding against the Crows, and, like experienced warriors, had sent our spy in advance to look for the enemy. Hurry on, in momentary expectations of the conflict. The stout hearts of our braves were appalled by this return without robe, or arms, and scalp pieces, and with a face stuffed or infused in blood. Yeah, so they came back with nothing. This was his story. The enemy, aware of our approach, were awaiting us in great numbers. Encountering their scouts, he had been robbed and scalped and left for dead. In this situation, he lay till darkness shut down upon the mountain, and the night breeze gave him strength to meet us and advise our speedy return. Believing the strange tale, we hastened our revisited our lodges, and began there. 3 moons sped, and we again penetrated the land of the foreman. The scalpless warriors, far in advance of our main party, once more discharged the duties of a spy. This time, a whoop of triumph announced the result of his mission, and as he made his appearance with the scalps of 2 waving from his spear, he tatered not to retaliate his adventure, but urged us instantly onward. Following him, we were led to the enemy. We fought and were victorious. Among the slain was one whose scalp was wanting. Who has done this? Asked the wondering braves. But none answered. Our spy, smiling at length, broke silence. Behind yonder hill, said he, a fountain enchants melody fit for warriors, or for warriors' ears. Let's to it, and we may drink. Off to the fountain. Yeah, there we go. Following this direction, he led to a silvery spring overhung by crags and shaded by cottonwoods. Drink, warriors, exclaimed. When withdrawing abruptly, he soon returned, and with the arms and robes which were his own in other days. Warriors, resumed the spy, you wondered at my mishap and lamented my hard lot when last we visited the Crow man's country. You wondered at the condition of one one among the recent slain, and ask for a reason. And doubtless you wonder still more that I now stand before you, bearing the store of which I was deprived, and fain you would know in what manner I obtained the hair of two. 3 times has the night queen turned her full face to smile upon the powerless of the Lakota arms, since at this very spot I met an enemy. We rushed towards each other for the attack. 'Twas then he cried, "We are not both braves. Why should we fight? When our people meet in the fray, then may we join arms. Till then, a truce." To this I replied, says Crowman Peace, "Then be there peace." Thus said, we shook hands and sat down by the fountain. Willing to amuse the foe, I gathered a pebble and proposed a game at hand. The challenge was accepted, and we played. First arrow against arrow, then bow against bow, robe against robe, and scalp against scalp. I was unsuccessful and lost all. Arrow, bow, robe, scalp, I gave up all, but with the extorted promise that we should here meet again for another trial of skill. True to the word, we did meet again. We played, and this time the good spirit showed me kindness. Winning back my arrows, my bow, my robe, I stalked them all against the lost scalp. The game was a close one, but again the good spirit favored me, and I won. Crowman said, I scalp against scalp. The banter was accepted, and the play continued. He lost, and I, with my winnings, arose to leave. Warrior exclaimed, the luckless player, meet me in the fight, that we may try the game of arms. Thy words please me, I answered. Will the Crowman name the place? Yes, a valley lies beyond the hill. There my people await their enemies, and there let me hope to see you with them. To that place I led you. We found and conquered. My opponent at play was among the slain. Need I tell you who took his scalp? The old man seemed to take pleasure in the acquainting us with the manners and customs of his people, and was ever ready to assign a reason for any of them, whenever such existed. He repeated to us the names of all the streams, mountains, prominent locations of the country, and examined the causes of their several christenings. Some 30 miles to the westward of us flowed a large creek called by the Indians Wishusina, Warcapocolo, or Old Woman's Creek. This stream is a affluent of the Cheyenne River, or adjacent to the Cheyenne River, and takes its rise at the base of a mountain bearing the same name. The mountain is an object of great veneration with the Sioux, who rarely enter into its neighborhood without bestowing upon it a present of meat. The old man entertained us with the following explanation of a custom so singular. My grandfather told me a tale he had received from the old men before him, and it is a strange one. Many ages past, bringing us back to the time when the Lakota lived in a country far above the sun of winter. Well, there we go. He is telling tales. Tales, tales, tales. You gotta love the old chief for that. And war stories, I should say, too. We're going to finish this up here and call it a day soon. Here, then, the Shoshone reared his white lodge and scoured the prairies in pursuit of game, while as yet the whole country abounded with lakes and ponds of water, and only the highlands and mountains were left for the buffalo and deer. But years passed on. The mountains and highlands continued to prey upon the waters, and the creeks and rivers gradually reduce the limits of their possessions. Years again fled. The Shoshones, attracted by some better region, far away, or driven from their homes by the hostile encroachments of other tribes, gave place to the sacred arms. In the course of generations, the Lakota and the Sacred Arms War red with each other. They fought with varied success for many years. Once a party of the Lakota penetrated into the heart of the enemy's country. On their return, they fell into the uh, ambuscade, and only 6 of them were left to tell the fate of their companions. Closely pursued by the Sacred Arms, they sought refuge in a mountain. There, an obscure passage led to the recesses in the mountain side, which they entered, and were pleased to find within it a gravelly floor, and a pure fountain of sweet water. Tempted by the conveniences of security of this place, they thought to remain for a few days, that they might recover their strength. A small fire was built accordingly, and 6 braves seated themselves around it, recounting to each other their perils and dangerous exploits, and planning some mode of extraction from their present difficulties. Thus, bruised and rustling noises from the dark corner of the apartment startled them, but still more they were aroused by the half disclosed form of a person moving in the distance. Words gave place to silence as the warriors seized their arms, awaited their feared assault. But the figure, on advancing near, proved that of a feeble old woman, who addressed the wandering group in their own language. "Children," she said, "you have been against the sacred arms. You have fought them, and of a strong party you alone survive. I know it all. You seek my lodge, a refuge from your pursuers, and the sound of your voices, with the heat of your council fire, has disturbed my rest and awoke me from a long, long trance. Your looks inquire my story. Many ages have gone, for days, moons, seasons, and ages are painted before me as they pass, since the Shoshones have lived where now live the Sacred Arms, visited the lodges of the Lakotas, and bade the prairie drink the blood of slaughtered braves. I was there captive, and with the scalps of the slain I was taken from the graves of my people, many days' travel. The Shoshone brought to me to this country, when yet the buffalo grazed upon the hills and mountains, only for the valleys and plains were the home of water. Living in the Shoshone, I was happy, or not happy. I thought of my people with all those dear to me, and prayed the good spirit that I might again behold the ear of my passage to the death land. I fled, hoping to reach the home of my birth, but age had enfeebled me, and being pursued, I sought refuge in this cave. Here, having passed a night and a day in earnest communion with the big medicine, a strange feeling came upon me. I slumbered in a dreary or dreamy state of consciousness. From then till now, but your looks again ask, who are the Shoshones? What became of them? And from whence were the sacred arms? The Lakota will soon know the Shoshones, and bring from One crossed the snow hills towards the sun setting. The Lakotas shall visit them and avenge the blood of the wrongs of ages. The other journeyed far away towards the sun of winter, and now live to the leftward of the places where the Spagnola builds his earth lodges. Then came the sacred arms from far off country, a land of much snow and cold, pleased with the thickly tenanted hunting grounds that here met them. They stopped for a chase, and by a possession through successive generations have learned to consider these grounds as their own, but they are not theirs. The Great Spirit gives them to the Lakotas, and they shall inhabit the land of their daughter's captivity. Why wait ye here? Go and avenge the blood of your comrades upon the sacred arms. They even now light their campfire by the stream at the mountain's base. Fear not, their scalps are yours. Then return to my people, that ye may come and receive your inheritance. Hast ye that I may die? And O Wikaruga, much as thou hast answered the prayer of thine handmaid, and shown me to the faces of my people, take me from hence. The awestruck warriors withdrew. They found the enemy encamped at the foot of the mountain. They attacked him, and with victorious 35 scalps were the trophies of their success. On reaching their home, the strange adventure excited with astonishment of the whole nation. The sacred arms were attacked by our warriors, and thus nerved with the hope of triumph, and were eventually driven from the country now possessed by the Lakotas as their own. The grateful braves soon sought out the mountain to do reverence to the medicine woman who had told them so many good things. A niche in the mountain side from whence issued a sparkling streamlet told their pass of refuge, but the cave and the woman alike had disappeared. Each successive season do our warriors visit the Shoshones for scalps and medicine dogs, and each of our braves, as he passes the old woman's mountain, fails not to bestow upon it a tribute of veneration of quarry of his thirst from the creek, and bears her name. Wow, there we go. Wow, that was a hard story to read. I don't know if you know, but man, reading that old writing is really, really hard. They write so funny, and to read it as they wrote, it is difficult, people. Trust me. Plus, the words, sometimes they're not spelled quite as we spell them today. But all is all, I hope you enjoyed that and the old woman's story. It sounds like they met the 6 braves who survived the fight, went to the mountain. They found a cave with a stream. They bedded down for the night, and then the old woman showed up, told them about the land and how they could, capture win the war with the braves down below. And she said you'd be victorious. She was like a foreseer, sent them on their way, told her story, and said good luck. And they did as she said and became victorious. But never could they go back to the mountain with the cave because it had disappeared. That's a good one. So anyway, think on that one. What was it? Anyway, we're going to sign off there. And remember, go out and do something nice for somebody. It's always a good day when you can bestow something on somebody else, and do something for yourself once in a while too. So with that, remember, go out and have your own great adventure. Be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all.